everyone, how are you doing? Welcome back to Rev and Restore. My name's Keith, and on today's video we're going to be fitting a charge maintainer, battery charger, battery tender if you're in America, to my TVR Tamora. So the battery location on a TVR Tamora and on many other TVRs as well, certainly the T-Series cars, is ridiculous. It's very, very difficult to get to. But let me first start by talking about the type of charger I'm going to use. So I've been using this Topdon Tornado 4000 for probably a couple of years now. It's a great little battery charger. I don't know of the exact price at the moment. I think they're about 70 quid when I got this one here. It comes with crimp connectors, so you can go directly onto the battery, or it comes with a remote connector, so you can go on the battery posts and you can have a quick connect like this somewhere in the car to make it easy for you to get to. Like I said, the battery location on a Tamora is mad. I'll show you that in a moment. And certainly using these clip-on connectors directly onto the battery just isn't possible on a TVR. So we're going to install the remote quick connector, and if we ever have any battery problems or we want to keep the battery maintained, we can do it connecting straight up to this very easily. So this Topdon Tornado 4000, like I say, it's a smart battery charger. I won't go into all the features, but it does AGM batteries, it does normal lead acid batteries, lithium batteries, and it also has a repair cycle on it as well. So if the battery is deeply sulfated, you can run it through a repair cycle and it will actually revive the battery a bit. I've had a sulfated battery before and I've used this charger and it's brought it back to life. So the problem we have on something like this, and certainly, you know, sports cars like this where you might only be using it at the weekends and then the weather's bad, you haven't used it for a couple of weeks, the batteries either go flat or they sit in a low state of charge, which can cause the battery to sulfate, which over time will damage the battery. So it's really important to keep the battery topped up to sort of 12.6, 12.7 volts. That will keep the battery in the best health possible. Constantly letting it drop below that, the battery will start to sulfate. You'll damage the battery over time, and what you find is you'll end up replacing the battery quite frequently. So imagine worst case scenario, you come out, it's a lovely day like today, you want to take it for a drive, you walk up to it, you press the button and nothing happens. The battery's flat. What are you going to do? How are you going to get into it? So we've got the key, but as you know, on the Tamora, there are no door locks. The boot is also operated off a micro switch behind the badge, so you can't get in the boot either. So you're really stuck if the battery goes flat. But TVR did give it a bit of thought. They installed an Anderson connector on the car. So this is underneath the car, you can plug in and that will allow you to jump start the battery. The only problem is that Anderson connector is behind this wheel here underneath. One, it's almost impossible to get on. I have been able to get this connector on, but because the car is so low to the ground, it's very, very difficult to get that connector underneath. And I think my Tamora is probably, I don't know, maybe an inch lower than standard. It's got those upgraded shock absorbers and springs on, so that might be the problem. But you'll see the biggest problem is when you drive into a garage. I mean, this is a nice double garage, but if you can imagine if you're driving into a single garage, you're always going to park it over on this side because you've got to get out, so you want to make as much room as you can this side. So as I have done here, actually, I will park it right over to the left hand side, and that means I get very, very little space down this side of the car. In fact, it would be almost impossible for me to get to the battery like it is at the moment. So to get to the battery, you have to take off the near side wheel. There's a panel then inside the wheel arch and you can get to the battery. You can't get to it inside the car, it's all done from outside the car. So like I say, if you've got a flat battery and this is stuck in against the wall in a garage, you are in a world of pain. So let's say, for example, that did happen and the battery's flat, we can't get into it, it's too close down the side here to be able to get our Anderson plug on there. What would you do? Well, there are ways of effecting entry into the car, but I won't talk about that because of security. If it was me, I would do what I'm doing now. So I would pop the bonnet up, I would remove the airbox, and then you can get to the back of the starter motor and the alternator. The cables for the starter motor and alternator will go directly to the battery. So you can either charge up off those points, or you should be able to jump start, but you need to be careful. I'm not sure where it is, but there's like 125 amp fuse under there. So you want to be careful you don't blow that. Now, originally I did think today, I'll jack it up on this side, I'll get the battery cover off, and then I will get my remote jump point, I'll connect it up to the battery, and then I will put it somewhere. Ideally, this would be best suited probably in the passenger footwell, but I thought I really don't want to be drilling the tub to make a hole to put this through. So I had second thoughts. This may not work. I'm going to remove the airbox. I'm going to get to the back of the alternator or the starter motor, and I'm going to see if I can connect these connectors on here. Because this is only a trickle charge, we're not running a load of current through it. That should allow me to hide this connector up underneath the bonnet here. It's relatively easy to get under the bonnet, and if I'm leaving the car, I can plonk it on charge. So next steps, let's whip off the airbox and have a look. I have had the airbox off before, so I won't run through it. I'll just show you quickly what needs to come off. So airbox is relatively straightforward to take off. We've got a couple of clips on the right hand side of the airbox. There is a clip in the middle on the left hand side. Mine's broken, so I don't need to worry about that. There are two hex bolts which go there and there. We've got an air temperature sensor connector. We have a vacuum pipe at the front here which goes to the fuel pressure regulator, and there's a vacuum pipe at the back there which I'm pretty sure goes to the ECU. So let's whip off that airbox and have a look around inside. And just like that, the airbox is off. I did take off the lower half of the airbox as well. This is really simple. There's two bolts that go through there, and there's a bracket here that has a bolt which goes in on the air conditioning compressor, and as you can see, there's a bracket for the other two bolts. So under here, there's our 125 amp fuse, and that 125 amp fuse goes from the alternator to the starter motor. So yeah, I guess just a bit of added safety, but you've got to be careful if you were attempting to jump start this under the bonnet. If you connected up to the alternator, you would probably blow that 125 amp fuse, so we're not going to do that. The simplest thing to do, I could go on the main battery cable there. There's the big thick cable there is the cable in from the battery, and then it splits there and comes out and then goes up to the alternator. What I'm going to do, I've already taken the bolt off. If we have a look round to the back of the alternator, there is this main power feed here, be called the B+ connector. I've taken the nut off already, because what we can do is just take that off like that, and then we'll fit our quick connector at the back there. Relatively simple. Now I would warn, you should really disconnect the battery on the car before you're doing anything like this. Right, we're done. Couldn't get much simpler, to be honest. That red, as I say, connector goes onto the alternator positive there. So let me grab the light. So it fits in quite neatly. And the negative, you've just got to get it onto a good ground somewhere. So we've got the negative onto one of the throttle body bolts. So all we need to do now is neaten up this wiring, because we've obviously got throttle linkages and that round here, and we need to find a suitable place where we can poke through our quick connector. But I'll probably do it cable tie up on the fuel rail there. So let me do that and get the airbox back on. Right, so there we go. I've actually run it so the connector is on the inner wing, purely because it gets really hot under the bonnet there, and up above the rocker covers, probably not the best place for it. So we've run it along, it's all cable tied in. Connectors down here, it's fused as well, so should all be good. And yeah, and if I want to put it on charge, I've just got to pop the bonnet. Like there's the charger there. Plug in the connector. Simple as that. And then we're on charge. Just going to clean up that air box and get it back on quickly. And there we go. So we've got the connector down there. Like I say, it's nicely out the way of everything and away from all the heat. Yeah, we just need to pop the bonnet, get our quick connector, plug it on, press and hold, and yeah, that will now keep the battery maintained. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. I did have a think about, obviously, the ideal location for that quick connector would be directly on the battery, because the further away from the battery, you're going to get more and more volt drop. However, the cables to the alternator and starter motor are really, really fat. I would imagine there's probably maximum a metre travel between the starter motor alternator and the battery terminal. So the volt drop is going to be very, very minimal. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Please do remember to give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, please do consider subscribing, and I'll catch you again on the next one. Cheers.